Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz, and today I am joined by my good buddy, Clinton Bonner. Clinton, we are going to be talking schedule once again. Hey, we got to do the schedule preview, you got to do the schedule live reaction, and then you got to do the schedule deep dive, and we do that with Mr. Dave Bloomquist, Hawk Van Dyke. We're going to bring him on in a minute, but how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, dude. Yeah, you don't do the schedule not once, not twice, but thrice, right? This is going to be a beautiful deep dive because for those that don't know, and Brandon might as well throw it up on screen right away. There's no reason to pitter patter here. For those that don't know Dave Bloomquist, he's amazing. You'll learn more about him if you don't. But Dave does a remarkable job each and every year. You know, we like to talk about the nooks and the crannies when it comes to other Seahawkers podcast shows. Well, I'd say Dave is kind of the king of the nooks and crannies of the true deep dive in the schedule. In fact, things he started talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago, you hear main pundits talking about now with rest differential and everything else. And I know Dave, I think Dave, Brandon, might have a new flavor for us and some new things to look at. So for the listeners out there, stick around because I think Dave's going to bring the goods today, Brandon.
Absolutely. Yeah. He goes into, and we've come to expect the rest differential stuff from Dave, but he also looks at it from a viewpoint of what other teams are doing before they visit Seattle. So it's not just the rest, it's kind of looking at their schedule and understanding, okay, they've played a couple home games in a row and now they're on the road, and just how that might have an impact, ever so slight, but it's something to consider because when it's interesting how he can pick out some of the games and predict, like, hey, this is a disadvantageous game for the Seahawks. And we've seen it in the past kind of come to fruition where we end up losing to a team that we would think, like, during the preseason that we shouldn't lose to. And yet it ends up being a more difficult game because of a lot of these different, factors that are schedule based. So I always like to get into it with him.
Yeah, it's an annual tradition like no other at this point. And, you mentioned something just before real quick, Brandon, about something being hard and looking at the schedules like this and the games that kind of surprise us. Well, here's something that shouldn't surprise you. We'd love you to subscribe. That's easy, right? So it's free. It's simple. Click subscribe, click the bell, hit the likes if you're watching this. And it helps a ton more than you probably imagine. And we also, one reason to join out on YouTube, Brandon, is that we like to put polls out on YouTube. So if you're a member, you join us, you subscribe, you're going to see these out there. So I put this one out. I think it was the night or the morning after the schedule came out. I said, hey, Seahawks schedule is out. And what's your overall interpretation of it? And we had 4 categories for those listening at home instead of watching. We had very easy, kind of tough, and very tough. So, just generic. And basically 71% were either in the very easy or kind of easy, with almost 2/3 right there in the kind of easy band, Brandon. So I think the Flockers are feeling really optimistic that the schedule is not too tough. And I'm really interested to hear how Dave sees it too.
Yeah. And I wonder who the people are that selected very tough. Especially when we're facing the NFC South and AFC South, because those are not difficult divisions.
No, they're the opposite of very tough, right? So we'll dive into all that with Dave. And so if something's very, what's the opposite of very tough, Brandon?
Very easy.
Very
it's right
easy.
There on the screen, or kind of easy.
Right. It's right there on the screen. So also kind of easy, let's get to it, is our sponsor, Body Spec. They make things very easy for you if you're ready to kickstart your fitness journey. Whether you're an athlete or a fitness enthusiast or just getting back in shape, Body Spec has you covered. For less than the price of a haircut, you get DEXA scans, the world's most accurate body composition scan. The DEXA scans by Body Spec focus on the numbers that actually matter. You're seeing them visualized on screen right now. Your body composition, your bone density, overall health metrics. It's a powerful way to take it, control of what's happening with that body of yours. And for the price under a haircut, well under $100, you could gain this knowledge. Great gift to give to you or give to somebody you love. You're going to get a $10 discount on single scans with code SHP. Bodyspec.com/C-Hawkers. Hit the QR code, bodysspec.com/C-Hawkers, code SHP for the $10 discount. Get the DEXA scan today. It is a great, great gift. All right. We appreciate very much our great sponsors. All right, Brandon. So
I can confirm,
yes,
having paid for a haircut and looked at the pricing after the discount of Body Spec, you can do it for less than the price of a haircut.
there you go. Yeah. And that includes with tip. And even in tipping is very funny. Actually, maybe Bloomy could talk a little bit about tipping. I don't know how tipping goes in the UK. I'm not sure they even tip in the UK. Maybe Bloomy could tell us all about it. So, Brandon, we are going to be bringing on our boy, Bloomy. What do you want to? How would you want to introduce him to the world if they don't know him quite yet?
I think that the tinfoil hat part in this graphic showing up at youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast, and I think even in past years, he has worn the tinfoil hat before because we've looked at the schedule and it does feel like, the NFL likes to stick us in situations that are suboptimal. And in the past, he's done a very good job of uncovering that. I don't know if we're going to get tinfoil hat Bloomy this year based on the schedule, but maybe that's one of the things that we can find out. And let's welcome him in, Clinton.
Let's do it. There he is.
Doc Van Dyke, welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
I want to know where you got all those pictures of me on the left-hand side of that body shape ad, the body spec thing.
Oh, we appreciate the extra plug there.
The airport, if you go through there, that's how we get all of our photos.
Love it.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is always fun for me to come on and do this. We definitely have had a past of some pretty unfavorable situations, but I gotta say, I'm baffled. For the second year in a row, we actually have got a pretty favorable schedule.
Ooh, well, let's start there. Let's get your just initial overall high-level reaction to the schedule because, like you said, it seems somewhat favorable, and that's been kind of your initial impression?
Yeah, my initial impression, when I scanned the schedule for the first time, I saw that there were just on the surface fewer pitfalls than usual, including only one team coming off a bye and playing us, and that's just so unusual for us, especially with all the East Coast teams that we play this year. The only bad news that I noticed on my initial scan is I did not see James Madison, Colgate, and Southwest Nebraska State, so it might be a little tough for our first round draft choice, who's going to play actual football players for the first time in his life, but we'll see what he can do.
Well, yes, if you listen to any of our draft coverage, you'd know even leading up to the draft, Dave Bloomquist was not a huge Gray Zabel proponent coming to the team. But when I look at the San Francisco 49ers defensive line, sure, they drafted a bunch of dudes out of college. I don't know. I guess I didn't pay attention to their college defensive linemen. Maybe it'll give them a good way to kind of break in to the NFL against that 49ers defensive line that is very, very new.
Yeah, Bosa went to tiny Ohio State, so Zabel should have an easy time.
I'm not talking about Bosa.
That's okay. Alfred Collins, Texas, and CJ West, Indiana.
I hardly heard of any of these schools that these guys went to.
Look, CJ West, Indiana. He was at the Shrine Bowl, Zabel at the Senior Bowl. See, that's different competition.
Yeah. Okay. So moving past that, which I have already promised the Discord that I would stop talking about that. I've broken that promise several times already. So one thing we also have is we have 2 mini buys. Now it's not always the greatest thing to play on Thursday. It's a quick turnaround, but you do get that sweet mini buy afterwards. So I kind of like that. And we also face 3 teams that are off of short weeks due to Monday Night Football, which is really nice. I like that. And then the only time that we're on Monday Night Football, it's followed by our bye week, so we don't get that short week after our Monday Night Football. So these are all very positive things that generally don't happen to us. On our 4 road games, we face teams. There are four road games where we face teams who are playing their second straight home game. But one of them is Jacksonville, and it's after a Monday night game. So that's
Short week.
6 days. One is Carolina, which is after one of our mini buys, and one is our last game of the year against the Winers. And there's a chance that our flex game will be on Saturday, and we'll get an extra day there. So each instance, except for Tennessee, which we're playing a team on their second straight home game, it's a pretty favorable circumstance for us.
Dave, with the second straight home game, what have you seen in the past? Is it, are these all things on the margin that obviously football is the game of inches, so these margins end up mattering in one way or another. But what's the history about two home games in a row for that home team?
Well, I just find like when you talk about rest days and kind of being fresh, you're not flying across country or coming against a road game against a tough opponent. So generally that team's a little bit more fresh and they play a little bit better, not having coming off a tough game. So it's always positive when you see that you're not facing a lot of teams, and we're not. We only have the 4 games against teams playing a second straight home game. I don't remember seeing that a lot in the past. So again, another positive thing in this schedule. This is the second straight year with a positive schedule, and I'm just totally baffled by that. But then when I dug, I found out what happened. But I'm going to leave this as a teaser to the end of the video because it is an eye opener.
All right.
The one of the kind of not things I'm not so happy about is we only play the same time slot consecutively once all season. It's in week 10 and 11. I feel that, like, again, you get into a routine, it gets a little bit easier. You're practicing, your game time's the same time, but we only have that 1-2 game stretch where that happens. Brandon, you and I have talked about that when, you go back and forth across the country. There was that one year, I think it was 2018, where we played like this absurd amount of games, like 10 games in a row, where it was 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and flying cross country. And it affected the team. They were terrible towards the end of the season.
And we do see a little bit of that in this year's schedule. So that back and forth, I guess that's maybe one concerning aspect to it. And I wonder if maybe that's why I wonder if the NFL even goes that deep into it and saying, well, there's a lot of back and forth because there's a lot of East Coast opponents. And so let's not compound it by making them play short weeks in addition to having to face that. I wonder how deep the NFL goes into those little scheduling quirks too. And maybe they're starting to dial into that more now that more people kind of analyze the schedule in the way you do.
I don't think the NFL dials in that deeply so much versus, look, we're playing a bunch of teams that don't have a lot of primetime games, right? Because they're kind of just not the most popular teams. And we're traveling to the East Coast and we got a buttload of 10 a.m. games, 10 a.m. Pacific, right? I just think that's just because where the money is. It costs more money to place an ad at the 4 o'clock Eastern games than it does the 1 o'clock games. They charge more money. There's more viewership at those hours. And I just think, for me, Brandon, I think that's what we ran into this year. It's like we look at Jacksonville, Tennessee, whatever happens in week 17. I know it's TBD, but that Carolina game, the Atlanta game, I think there's one other, and the Steelers game. You talk about some not great 2025 rosters right now with a kind of a lack of star power too. So that's what I think, Dave. I'm not sure if you're on the same wave there, but I just think the NFL is like, nope, we're not giving you even the 4 o'clock slots when you come East because the games are just not that good comparatively to what they could put out there.
Yeah. And kind of on that same note, what you're seeing these days is there's only 3 late window games anymore because they're only focusing on that one late window game to get that ad revenue and get the eyes on that one game. I remember growing up, when there were even less teams in the league, it was almost like a 50-50 split between the early and late games. And now it's just they're focusing on a very small amount of teams in the late window.
Yeah, for sure. That is exactly the number too. It's like very often there's some Oh, I don't know. Packers versus Detroit at this point. Like that's at 425, right? And that gets Burkhart and the A1 crew. And there's like, you're right. There's like 2 other 4 o'clock games. I actually love it as an East Coast Seahawks fan. We have a ton of those 4 o'clock games and there's not a lot on. So that's kind of cool for me. I get to kind of focus on those too. So, but yeah, it's been a big time trend for sure.
One of the
Oh, it's fantasy football nightmare when the Seahawks are in the early window because like you want to watch the Seahawks, but you want to see how most of your players are doing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
One of the cool things this year, Dave, is that you've shared with me like your week by week analysis, which I've never had this view into how your mind works with regard to the schedule. And maybe you'd be willing to post it up in our Discord, just because I do think it's kind of cool how you have a column for looking at who the team is that they've played before they play the Seahawks. You have the away games in red. You have the time slot in one column showing if it's a 10 Pacific start time, 1 Pacific start time, and then your commentary for each game. This is really interesting to see.
Yeah, I try not to disclose what goes on in my mind to people most of the time, but I figured it'd be fair to give you guys a little baseline of what we can talk about today. But this is what I've done every year when I've got on with you, Brandon, is this a very similar thing to this where I put my comments in the column, the last column, and they're red if it's a negative circumstance, they're green if it's a positive circumstance. And there's only 5 negative circumstances all year, so I think that's really outstanding. That's a schedule that you really want, where you pick deep into this and you find only 5 bad scenarios.
Can you step us through some of those? I know you've mentioned a couple as you were talking earlier, but
I want to start with the Niners because
it is game one,
first bad scenario, and it's game number 1. And in a situation where when I looked at it, I was thinking, oh, well, we've done well against especially the Kyle Shanahan version of the Niners in September. And even I think, I'm trying to think even in the Pete Carroll era when we started against the Niners, it was early in the schedule, obviously. Well, they had some good years with the Harbaugh years, but before that, Mike Singletary, I know we got a win opening game against them, but I saw that as favorable starting out against the Niners.
Well, I kind of feel that going through the schedule is like going through a racing form. They throw so many stats at you. You can kind of cherry pick what you want and see if there's something good or something bad. And when I was listening to your analysis and you're saying we do so well in September, it's like, okay, so you've given a 4-game window. Well, what I found when I did some research is we are only, as a 50-year franchise, we're only 3-12 all time when opening versus a division opponent. So I don't know if that's a sign of non-readiness that has happened all throughout the history. This isn't just the early day Seahawks or the crappy 90s Seahawks. This is all through the years. We have had trouble with divisional opponents on opening day.
All 3 of those wins against the Niners. I don't know.
I can't tell you who they were against, but you think about like Russell Wilson.
Was that all time? Are you talking about in franchise history? So
yeah, franchise history. But you think about like Russell Wilson's rookie year. He lost to Arizona.
Right.
That year that we lost to the Rams. Sorry, the Lance. On opening day, and you just looked at that, and I know we talked about it leading up to that game. We're like, this is great. I can't think of a better scenario than having the Lambs come in on opening day, and we end up losing. So we'll see if it's a trend or just a mojo. But it is nice that we're opening at home. I'm glad we are opening at home, but it doesn't always work out for us.
The 3-12 part, that's a stat I had not heard. So I think a lot of listeners and viewers will be learning that for the first time. And it'd be interesting to see, like, okay, in the McDonald era, how does this go? If it is a readiness thing, sheesh, he seems to have his teams ready to play football. So can that carry over? I mean, there's no excuse to not be ready for a division rival, and B, after an entire offseason, However, the proof's in the pudding there, Dave. 3-12 is 3-12. So interesting stat for sure. And I hate it. So thanks.
No problem.
Well, I mean, you brought up the counterpoint, Clinton. It's Mike McDonald is a different coach than Mike Holmgren, a different coach than Pete Carroll, a different coach than Chuck Knox, even if we're including him in the stats. So it does feel like more of a coaching point than maybe it would some of the other games.
But you could say it could be a coaching point on the other side too. Like you have these elite coaches in Shanahan and McVay, and maybe they just know how to get up for an opening game.
Sure. All right.
So
going then to week 2.
So Pittsburgh is you want to play a team that's in complete disarray right now. I mean, here we are in the end of May, and there's no quarterback in Pittsburgh, and that's crazy. If they go in,
no quarterback, wow.
Yeah, there's going to be direct snap to the running back for every play. But my little gem that I uncovered there is Sam Darnold is 2-1 all time versus Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
So we got the right guy.
There we go. Yeah, that's lock it up with that one. Yeah, we have our challenges at Heinz Field, and but so do most teams, right? That's been a tougher place to play. One of the things that Brandon and I talked about too was that we think weather-wise, this broke pretty well. Like
yes.
we thought in the preview to the preview show, we're like, oh, Pittsburgh, that's November, that's December. It feels that way. Nope. September 14th in Western Pennsylvania is usually pretty darn beautiful. So, that kind of happened throughout where I think we actually got some, whether it's a weather break for both teams, but it should be like just good tracks. It shouldn't be too hot, shouldn't be too cold, kind of a Goldilocks scenario across the board in terms of weather. Any other things about that Steelers game besides, Darnold's 2-1, Steelers don't have a quarterback.
Well, going on the weather, Pittsburgh has, ever since Bain blew up the stadium, Pittsburgh has always had a reputation for bad turf. And that's because the University of Pittsburgh and the Steelers play there every weekend. And here we are in the second game of the year. That turf will probably be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. Cool. Good.
And also, when I talk about the Steelers being in disarray, their leading rusher, their leading receiver, and their leading quarterback are all no longer with the team. Now, if you're going to tell me that whatever replacements they have for all of these people just gel immediately in week 2, I think that's a lot to ask.
Well, because Aaron Rodgers is known as a guy who really is the glue to a team. And so, yeah.
Well, I don't think it's going to be Rodgers. I really don't.
Okay.
No, I think it's going to be old Mason. Yeah.
Could be Will Howard at that same time, right? So we'll see. If they don't sign Rodgers, I wouldn't doubt that Will Howard could beat out Mason Rudolph if they're like, just let's see what we got. And they don't really care because they don't really have a quarterback. Even though Tomlin seems to still peel out 9 or 10 wins. Come on.
Let's not poo-poo this Aaron Rodgers idea. Kirk Cousins may still be out there. And that would be, I think, the nightmare scenario for Seattle because for whatever reason, Kirk's had our number.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
all right. Well, you uncovered a little nugget with the New Orleans game that is something that's difficult to see initially on the schedule because you looked to the previous 2 games for the Saints.
Yeah, this will be the first road game of the season for the Saints, so that's nice. They've got all the comforts of home, and then suddenly they got to fly across country and play Seattle, who will be 1-1 at that point, according to this. But again, New Orleans is just another one of those teams. Like it's almost. You always see a team going into the season that just looks like they are high contenders for the first pick. Mm-hmm. And New Orleans is that team this year.
So we mentioned on the schedule release show that the Seahawks are 7-0 against the Cardinals. And we could skip over that one and then go to Tampa Bay. What did you find with the Bucks then coming into Seattle?
Well, we are home after a mini bye versus a team coming from the East Coast who played the Super Bowl champions the week before. That is a wonderful scenario. And I heard you guys. I am praying that that's throwback day. I want to see Bucko Bruce against the Indian Seahawk. Would just be I would be out of my skin at that game.
Okay, so if that one's number one, what would be your? Because now I think they've expanded it to as many as 4 games for throwbacks. Do you have any other favorite throwback games?
Yeah, I think that the throwbacks work better when you're playing a team that either has a throwback or looks old. You remember a couple years ago, I was calling out for the Browns game, and it turned out that way, and it just like it looked like an old game. Um, I think that the Colts is one of those games that's going to look like a throwback, no matter what the Colts wear. Um, but I also think, like, I would think that they're probably going to have them on for a divisional opponent. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in Week 1 again. I think that'd be awesome. The 50th anniversary, the throwback on Week 1. But I also we're talking about those city uniforms.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think the city uniform is going to come out against Houston on Monday Night Football because Houston had their city uniform last year with the H on the helmet. They're a new team. It just feels like that's the time to roll out. It's like, okay, this is our ghetto uniform.
I thought the city uniforms, my understanding was that they were like pivoting them to division rivals. So you can only wear, that's my understanding. That
Can you cut this part out of the
so that the City Connect style, from the baseball version is going to be for division rivals, and that's that. Which does also manipulate where you might bring the throwbacks back, because throwbacks versus the Rams could be cool because they've had some that old school, like think about Bettis or Dickerson, really cool old uniforms. But the one for me, just to chime in too about this, is that the Falcons, the old school, like bring back the old school Falcon with the red, with the different helmet, with the more upright vertical Falcon itself. That could look really sharp against our Royal Blues. So there's a lot of fun opportunities for some really cool stuff. Or Brandon, there's still one on the board there that I overlooked, man, from a throwback.
Interesting. It probably won't be the Commanders because I feel like the NFL probably doesn't want to throw back to them.
I don't think they're throwing back to that one. I'm thinking the Oilers, with the Titans. Bring back those baby blues versus Seattle.
I never think of them wearing their throwbacks because it just seems, I don't know. I was against it when they brought them back against the Texans, and then, maybe they should bring it back against us because maybe that would even things out.
Well, just like you just nuked me, Clinton, I'll nuke you by saying that I heard that they had made an gentleman's agreement to not wear the Oilers uniforms anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because there was the bad blood that came up when they did that last year.
Well, against Houston, they should never do that. But if they do it against other teams, fine.
Yeah, it's disappointing. They're beautiful.
Minnesota would be a good throwback game. Those old, square number Vikings is
they're kind of cool. Yeah, they haven't changed too much over the years. They definitely changed the fonts on the numbers and stuff. So, I love all that, man. And then we were on that Bucks game. Was there anything about besides the awesome uniforms? So they're coming off the Eagles, right? So they got to play the Eagles coming into town. I love that too, Bloomy. This is 2013, 2014. We would play a team and they would not win the next week. Even if they played good against us, didn't matter. They would get so beat up and really have a major disadvantage coming into the following week. Do you see it similarly with the Eagles and kind of where they're at, and this just who they are at this point? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that, generally teams would get up to play us, and then there would be a little bit of a letdown the next week anyway, no matter how much you were beat up. So I think that happens, like you really get up. They're at home versus Philadelphia, so they're going to want to beat the Super Bowl champions at home. But it just amazes me, just based on our history, that an East Coast team is coming to Seattle and we have extra rest days because of the Thursday night game. It's just unheard of that they would do that. So I think that is probably our best scenario game all season, that Tampa Bay game.
Very nice. So it sounds like you have that one as a win.
I will chalk it in.
Awesome.
It's interesting. You don't really predict wins and losses. It's more of finding like these little edges in the schedule. But I feel like with Jacksonville, coming off a short week. You could probably pencil that one in for a win. And then, you have Houston, though, coming off of a bye, and in Seattle, Monday Night Football. This is the second time in the schedule in these first 7 weeks that you actually have a little bit of a red mark here.
Yeah, anytime that you're facing a team off by and they've got 7 extra days, that's tough. I have found in the past we would go on the road against a team coming off by a lot. So it's nice that this game is at home. But again, this is the only time that we do face a team off by all season. It's a night game. You've got a whole day plus a whole day to get ready for it. So again, it's red because it's not the best scenario, but I think that it could have been worse. I've seen scenarios where it's worse.
Nice. So not a deep red.
In the red. It's still a dub for Seattle.
There we go.
Yeah. And just going back to talking about penciling in wins, I generally don't like when people say, oh, these guys have the easiest strength of schedule, or, there's so much that happens in the offseason, free agency, coaching moves, draft. You can't tell me what team is going to be good. Like, look at Washington. Everybody who, in May was going through their schedule. Oh, Washington, that's a win. And Washington ended up 12 and 5 last year. So
yeah.
I think when you start getting into the season, 7th or 8th game, you can start looking at strength of schedule going forward. But right now, there's no way you're going to get me to sit there and say, oh, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a win. You just don't know the teams well enough yet.
Fair enough.
Niners fans are already doing it because that's what they do.
Well, they're idiots.
Well, they got Brock. They got Brock locked up. Let's see how that, by the way, not to take us back to square one. However, it will be extra delicious if we could make Brock just look very mediocre coming off that big new contract. Boy, would that really set the stage for a fun season. I do want to ask you, Dave, so 10/20, October 20th, it's 7 p.m. local. It's the second of the Monday Night Football games. You're in the UK. What does that mean for you? Is it you stay up all night? You wake up early? What time does that game actually start for you? Your local time?
Depends on my fantasy team. No. Okay. So I generally will not watch the Sunday night or the Monday night game because that starts at 1:00 for me
it's late
in the morning. But if it's Seattle, I'll just do what I did in Hong Kong. I'll go to bed a little early, kind of take a nap, watch the game, go back to bed at 3:00 and get a full night's sleep. And we all know I'm retired, so sleep is like days of the week. God only knows what day or hour it is for me anymore. But for that 3:00 game, I definitely looked at that one. That's actually a fairly favorable scenario for me because I can definitely go to sleep at like 8:00 and wake up at 3 a.m. and just watch it and get up and eat breakfast and have my day.
Love it. That's awesome.
3 a.m. start time. And then you have a week to recover before another primetime game.
That's true, but the bye week is always fantasy week. Clinton knows that. It's like you can watch all your players and not get stressed about the Seahawks or get on and try to out-gif each other on Discord.
I love that week. It's a great week.
Yeah, and the bye week is, an 8th week bye week is just perfect. It's great, and on top of that, the Monday night game or the Sunday night game we have against the Commanders comes off of our bye week. We not only dodged a 10:00 game, we dodged a cross-country short trip, and Washington plays Kansas City on Monday night the week before, so they have a short week to go with our long week. So again, really good scenario. And the other thing I want to say about this is everybody's so freaking out off their shoes about Jaden Daniels. It's exactly, just think about where you were last year with Houston, and like their quarterback was like looking. I can't even think of his name right now. CJ Stroud. He was like the whipped cream on the icing, and he all of a sudden was not playing a last place schedule anymore in year 2, and he was humanized. Houston still made the playoffs, but Stroud was not Stroud last year. So let's not let's tap the brakes a little on Daniels before we see what he does against a better schedule.
And I've heard that too. And I just look at the scenario that he was in Houston with that offensive line, and he played with a very similar line, I think, last year to what we had in front of Geno. And I just don't think that he has that. He has the speed maneuverability to get outside of the pocket, but I don't think he quite has that same inside the pocket navigability that Geno has. So year two, that's tough to expect that from a year two guy, but I think that's what we saw from Stroud, and I don't even know if they fixed it, but I don't know if we're going to see those same issues necessarily with Daniels, but it's good to remind ourselves that, maybe year two and the schedule being a part of that too, and that he's not facing a last place schedule, a little bit better teams, and they're going to know how to prepare, I think, for Daniels in year two versus year one. So
definitely. And let's not forget, he missed a couple of games in injury too, the way he plays and the size he is. So cross your fingers he's injured that week.
The piece for me with that Commanders game is like, I'm pretty sold on Daniels being obviously quite good and a problem. And that's going to be challenging. However, the Commanders did not do a lot to fix their run defense. They're just not that good of a run defense team. So I love the mix of short week for them off of a tough opponent with KC versus our bye week. And then you have to put in the mix that, look, you can say what you want about Clint Kubiak. Most often his teams are committed to and good at running the football. So that to me, that kind of game, guys, is just like, holy crap. Can we get one of those 180, 190 yards total on the ground and just basically put the Commanders back a little bit and be like, you're not quite there yet, especially defensively. Again, Daniels, I think he's really, really solid, but that game to me screams just jelly it down their throats until they can stop you. And we'll know by week 8, week 9, we will know who we are. So I just love where it sits for those reasons.
Yeah.
And because Washington is playing in KC on the road before coming home and facing the Seahawks, that still gives that field some time to recover from the previous game, because we've seen just how chopped up that Washington terrible. Stadium can get. But
terrible.
And it's really nice. If you look at my chart, Washington begins a run of 6 out of 7 opponents that have played road games prior to playing us. So it's just one of those small things that makes a difference. Especially if you're playing at home, which you have Arizona next, and they're on a short week because they're at Dallas for the previous Monday night. I happen to love that game too. Let's pencil that one in.
I didn't realize that was one I did not look at last time with you, Brandon, that they were also off of a short week. So, man, this is
2 games back to back. Where the opponent has a short week, yeah.
That is pretty good. And the other Cardinals, not sure there's much else to say about that, but that's a nice little nugget again, man. Love it, Dave.
So then after those 2 kind of favorable situations, we have the Lambs. This is the beginning of a 5-week 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock yo-yo where we go 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And then a night game, so it might as well be like another late game. So it's also 2 straight road games we have. The Lambs are actually coming off a road game against San Francisco, so hopefully they'll be a little bit beat up. Maybe we can find a little silver lining there. But then, now I alluded this to you, Brandon, on Discord, that the next game is our worst circumstance game of the year. And that happens to be the Tennessee Titans, who you guys were talking about a road trip for. That actually would work for me, believe it or not, because my parents live in Kentucky and that's Thanksgiving weekend. So I could fly into Nashville, see the game with you guys, and then drive up to Louisville and have Thanksgiving with the family.
Brandon, we got Thanksgiving in Kentucky. How about us? we'll bring the six-legged turducken and we'll be with the Bloomquist. That Dave, thank you for the invite. That sounds great.
I'll tell you what, I would be happy to have you guys. The more buffer I have against my parents, the better.
Well, you did move out of the country, so
yeah, sometimes 12,000 miles isn't enough. But going back to the worst circumstance. So the Tennessee game is our 3rd out of 4 on the road, which is bad. It's Tennessee's 3rd straight home game. Now, traditionally, I mean, going back to the 70s, Vegas has always been on that 3rd straight home game for the home team. It just traditionally, it has been an outright win for the team having a 3rd straight home game. And again, it's a 10 o'clock game after a couple 1 o'clock games. So, your body's a little wonky. And I just feel like this is the type of game that when you lose, if you haven't gone through this exercise, it's like, wow, how did we lose that game? But maybe you can look back and say, oh, Bloomy had that. He had that all lined up.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 on the road, not that great. And then when you compile that with that being their 3rd straight home game, that it does have me worried. So I don't know. Maybe Tyler Lockett can play quarterback that game and even things out.
All Wildcat, all Lockett. That'll work. I mean, look, they will be starting a rookie quarterback. So, and again, Bloomy, this whole exercise is to find those edges. I think you're doing an awesome job at it. But you're unearthing some things that I don't love, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But Brandon, it does not deter me from still wanting to go to Nashville. That's
the game. But also, you talk about the rookie quarterback. You think about last year, Nix and Daniels were starting to get their footing right around the beginning of the 3rd quarter of the season. So,
you'd rather have him week 1, 2, 3 if you could, but it can't all be rainbows. But absolutely right. We talked about that in the previous show or the show about, this could be a time where Ward is starting to find a groove. We won't know, but it's enough time that a rookie is, and the coach, they're figuring out how can they move the ball, right? I think Ward's pretty good. I don't know about you, Dave.
I don't know if I put him in the category of Nix and Daniels, though. I probably
not Daniels, but maybe Nix.
I think, when they were doing the pre-draft analysis, like where would he have gone last year? They said he would have gone between JJ and Nix.
Well, but Nix went too late, and I think Nix was better than May.
We'll see. We'll see. People are super high on May too. So
don't insult the Patriots fan up top there.
It's my New England bias. What can I tell you? I've lived here too long. All right, so that's Tennessee. There's some warts there. However, it's going to be a lot of fun, and you get to go home and see your parents for Thanksgiving, and we're coming over. So where do we go next?
Downsides to it.
where do we go? Where do we go next, Dave?
So then you get home. You get the first of 3 out of 4 home games against Minnesota next, which is good. And Minnesota comes off a pretty tough road game against Green Bay. So that's not a bad scenario. Again, I don't want to tell you how good or bad Minnesota is going to be by week 13 next year, but they've made quite a few changes as well. And then the Atlanta game is the last of the 5 negative circumstances. This is the 7th straight year where they have put us on the road for 4 out of 6 games towards the end of the season like this. And Brandon, that has not produced great results for us. We absolutely, in my eyes, look tired when we play that 4th out of 6 road game. It's a 10 o'clock game at Atlanta. Atlanta's going to come off of a game against the Jets on the road. So, at least they're coming off the road. But I also happen to think Atlanta's going to be pretty good this year. So that to me is a red flag game for sure.
Michael Penix truther, Dave Bloomquist.
I love it. I did want to point out there too, you mentioned Penix, that little stretch from Tennessee through the Falcons.
Yeah.
Barring injury, you're talking Cam Ward, JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix. That's
Well,
it's
and then look the week later, and you
who the hell knows who's going to be? Nobody knows who's quarterback for the Colts by that time. It could be neither of their two
Sam
dudes.
Ellinger,
Yeah.
going to come back to the Colts and quarterback that team.
I feel like there's literally just as good as a possibility that's it's the other bucket, whoever that is, everybody else, all the other 8 billion people on earth versus Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. I think other is just as good as a guess. Literally.
By week 15, yeah.
By week 15, other. I would probably take other.
And you talk about a good scenario for us. Indianapolis comes to Seattle after playing at Jacksonville, flying as far as you possibly can. That is their third of 4 on the road for the Colts. So again, it's just one of those things where you look at it, and if it's just this absolute destruction, maybe it's not going to be because of Daniel Jones or Richardson. Maybe it's Indianapolis is just in a really bad place for that game.
Tough on them. Too bad.
Maybe we can, that'll give us some extra. We'll be primed then for the second matchup with the Rams.
Yeah, and I just talked about how bad it is when you play 4 out of 6 on the road. Well, this is the second straight time that we're going to play a team that's playing their 3rd out of 4 on the road. So the Rams will be playing on the road on a short week after a matchup versus Detroit in their 3rd of 4 road games. So that's a really good scenario for us for, unfortunately, the last home game of the season.
Yeah, but to your point though, huge edge advantages there. That's as good as it's going to get. It's difficult already to go play Thursday night football fairly crisply. Well, first of all, it's Thursday night football. Everybody understands it actually shouldn't exist. It's one of those like animals you see in the wild. Like, well, if I am to believe evolution, this thing should not exist, but here we are, right? The Thursday night football should not exist, but here we are. It's difficult. Then if on the road Thursday night football, it's just the numbers are what they are. Road teams don't often take it. And it's kind of a great equalizer because the play is really depressed. Everything you just said there, Dave, has me super excited. Hopefully the way the rest of the schedule pitches, even ending with 2 games on the road, hopefully by week 16, we kind of have, we're in the driver's seat and we're looking pretty darn good. So that's going to be a crucial week. It might be, if all things break the right way, that might be the kind of week where you're looking at a division decider. Yeah,
that would be really nice. Especially because, we know that I think Stafford turns 52 this year. So
yes.
So by week 16, I think his elbow is going to be hamburger. So we also got that going for us. A late season game against Stafford cannot be the worst scenario for us. And then we go on our first of our penultimate game of the year, which might be a Saturday game. They're going to determine that through the year. You got at Carolina. Now this is a great little Hawk Van Dyke nugget here. Carolina is playing their second straight game versus a team off mini bye. So their opponents have 6 more rest days than they do for those last 2 for the games leading up to ours. I really like that, and I really want that game to be on Saturday. So there's 5 games, 2 of which they're going to put on Saturday. You really want to pray for this game to be on Saturday because the next game, the last game of the year, will be at San Francisco. And that extra rest day when you're playing 2 straight road games could be pretty critical at that time, especially if that game means something.
And it is possible. Like I know you mentioned earlier that strength of schedule is not, it's something not to pay attention to. But I think with San Francisco having a 4th place schedule based off of how they finished last year, I think that's something that's still, some of that's going to carry over in terms of those bad teams that were bad last year are still going to be bad this year. And maybe not all of them, but I think a significant enough bunch that it could. I mean, there's a reason why people are picking the Niners as division winners. And it's because they're looking at the schedule and going, wow, they play a lot of bad teams this year.
Vegas
and that's
has
a great segue to the talking about the rivals as I broke down the rivals schedules too. And I actually do have a note about that. Yes, you don't know what's going to happen because of all the changes that occur during a year, but you cannot deny the fact that the Winers have Jacksonville, the Giants, Cleveland, Carolina, and Chicago on their schedule because of finishing last place. And I remember last year when they were falling apart, I just was kind of biting my nails over the fact knowing that they were going to get that last place schedule in a weaker NFC.
Yeah. I think the juxtaposition is the Rams. The Rams have compared, like Seattle has a fairly easy, quote unquote, easy schedule. And I know people are going to throw tomatoes. Nothing's easy, NFL. We don't know about Jacksonville. We don't know about Carolina. That's all true. We understand all that, right? Even the Colts, even the Saints could be good. I don't see it, but they could be. And the Niners, Vegas has them at 10.5 wins for a reason, right? I think there's a little bit of bias still hanging on there. They think the team's better than they maybe are, but that's what it is. But the Rams, I think they have Detroit, they have I think it's like Detroit, Eagles, and one other really tough one blew me versus like what you just said about the Niners. Talk about the Rams for a sec, man, because it's decidedly harder with their first place schedule.
Yeah, but as I went through the process of the rest days and all that, it was hard not to note that our whole division is in the top 6 of the NFL in positive rest days.
Oh.
None of our opponent in our division face a team coming off a bye. We are the only ones to face a team coming off a bye. And in spite of that, we have this crazy hidden advantage, which is really amazing. I'm going to have to go down to my little chart here to talk about this. So I make 4 charts. I make the surplus games, the games that you are positive in net days, the ones that you have a deficit in net days, then the whole those two combined. So what's your net rest days versus opponents? But for the first time this year, I did the net rest games. I always did days, but that might not have always been as accurate because it could be 7 days here or 3 days here. How many net games do you have? Now, even though the net rest days, I hope I'm not losing our audience here.
Actually, Dave, I was going to pause you and say, just give me the math. What does it mean? Define net rest game. Cause I'm like, does that mean it's 7 total? What do you mean by net rest game?
Okay. So the net rest days is how many days, like if you have a bye, that's 7. Yeah. If you face a bye, that's -7. Right. So if that's your only, circumstances, then you're a net 0.
Yep.
Okay. So a typical team, like as I look through this list, will be anywhere between -10 and +10. So the Rams are actually Detroit has the best rest days net this year with 13. Okay, so they play 13 less days than their opponents. Or they have 13 rest days over their opponents.
Yep.
Second is Miami with 11. Third is the Lambs with 10. Then the Winers with 9. Then the Seahawks with 8. Then the Cardinals with 7. So there you go. That's the top 6. And right there,
the division
3 through 6 is the division. Okay. Now you would think it's like, okay, well, that kind of sucks because here we are with this wonderful schedule, yet where's the advantage? Because the rest of the NFC West has a wonderful schedule. Well, this is what I uncovered, this happiness on my face. So the net rest games where you are rested more than your opponent, right? Because of the number of times that our divisional opponents play against Monday night teams or play on Monday night, whatever they're doing, San Francisco's net rest game, where they're more rested their opponent, is 1. The Rams, 2. Arizona, 1. Seattle, 4. We got 4
Wow.
games that we are more rested than our opponents. Only Detroit is better with 5. 29 teams have between 2 and -2 rest days. Only Detroit and Seattle have as many as 4 and 5.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
is huge. That is the nugget.
Goodbye, tinfoil hat. Yeah.
That's it. Throw that thing in the garbage. That was tinfoil hat. When I found that, I was like, that is delightful. There he is.
There it is. So he's swinging away like Merrill there, and he's ditching the hat. Love that, Bloomy. Really cool nuggets. And you teased it earlier, so good job with that. But it was worth sticking around for. That is a big deal. That's a
Huge.
Yeah. And I love that. That's a cool breakdown. So thank you for explaining it too. Cause I was like, oh, what do you mean by net rest games? But I get it now. It's just like, do you have more than the team they're playing? Okay. That's a yes for that one. So we have that.
Yeah. Well,
It's
that
like
kind of makes a little bit more sense too, because if you think about, I don't know, whether or not you're Detroit and you have all that extra rest, but if that's just built in leading up to one game, there's not really a ton of benefits to have, after that week is over, it's not like you still you have all that rest banked.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's kind of what, and I think that's where, like there had been times where I nailed the rest days and the performance and how teams finished, but sometimes there were outliers. Like I remember there was one year that Houston had by far the least rest days, but that was the year that Stroud's rookie year where they were good. And I just wonder if I go back, I'm not going to spend my time doing it, but if I go back and say, like, did those rest days only mean 1 or 2 extra rest games for them, or did it mean, a lot of rest games for them? Who knows?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. They're not rollover minutes, right? It's a great way to think about it. You kind of spend them that week. You're either more rested than your opponent or you're not, or you're equal. Right. So huge advantage. Very cool. Well, Bloomy.
But this is why we're here. This is the teaser. This is why that picture was taken. Now, very soon after that picture, I had to open that bin and grab that hat back again.
Oh, so are you force levitating it back out of?
I think I am, because as it turns out, we don't need that hat anymore. But I had to send it to Las Vegas because, as I found out, the NFL did not hate us. They hate Pete Carroll.
Oh no.
This is why we got these crap schedules for all those years. And then suddenly in the last 2 years, our schedules were good. And I didn't notice any crazy outlier last year because Pete Carroll was out of the league. You ready for this?
Yes.
Pete Carroll has a rest day deficit of 31.
Oof.
What?
Okay. Now, the next worst team is Washington with 30, but it's because Washington got the unfortunate luck of facing 4 teams off of bye. But even with that, because they play so many national games, they're only -1 in rest day deficit. So the net rest days for the Raiders is -20. -20. Okay. The rest game deficit is net -5.
Wow.
And the next worst is -2.
Wow.
Pete Carroll's team is going to be catfish. It is the most unbelievable thing. The Raiders face 3 teams off of bye, 2 teams off of mini bye, 1 team off of a Friday, and they have 2 Monday night games, which give them short weeks. They've got the royal shaft, and it's because of Pete Carroll. The NFL hates Pete Carroll.
Wow. That's all we needed was to know that. Well, I think Pete Carroll would be happy to accept your tinfoil hat. He may even have one of his own.
Well,
Yeah,
speaking
and
of,
normally I wouldn't tell people to do such a thing, but bet your child's education fund on the Raiders and the under of their wins this year, because that is just an absolutely, like, it is so horrendous to have something like that as it is, but to have that disparity over the next worst team on top
yeah.
of that, like, they have the -20 rest days. The next worst team has -15. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a terrible outlier to the negative for Pete there. So we'll see how they battle. We'll see how they do it. You were talking about hats, so I was saying, you ditch in one hat, but a hat that you don't ditch. For the folks that are hanging out with us and see it on screen, you are the star, and your channel is Starstruck by London, where you go around and really you love the deep stuff, Dave. I love this channel, and you go around and you peel out unique stories and unique places. I've been telling people like, hey, if you're going to go visit London, you have got to subscribe, because you're going to get out of the touristy BS and you're going to get authentic takes on what to actually go and do. And also like hyper niche. Like if you're into football, soccer over there, here's what you got to go do. If you love the Beatles, here's the stuff that no one's going to tell you. If you love drinking American beers, here's where to go see some attractive bartenders and all those things. So anything else folks about your channel, Dave, and how much fun you having doing it, dude?
I think it's great. I definitely enjoy doing it. I enjoy looking at the numbers. I wanted to mention here, it is so easy for everybody to just tap that like button, make a comment, and it means everything. And I'm talking on behalf of you guys. Since I realized how important that is for myself, as you guys know, I always make an effort to make a comment on your videos and absolutely like all your videos. It's the easiest thing you can do. But as far as my channel, I'm going to have a guest this week. Cora Wellnitz is coming to visit. She's going to stay with us for 4 days, and she's been looking at the videos and giving me her take on where she wants to go and what she wants to do. So I feel like I'm giving a service here.
That's awesome. Yeah, Cora, longtime listener who we also met up with at the London game, and her and her significant other. Really cool people, and man, you're gonna have a blast. I'm jealous.
Yeah, and also I found out this week, my buddy from Hong Kong visited, and last year I was unable to get the tickets for the NFL games. This year he said you've got them, so
Nice.
I'll be able to get some of our European flockers and get them into the hospitality suite to watch some NFL. And the best news about that, it's the Tottenham game, so we don't have to watch the Lambs in Wembley.
I was gonna say you're gonna be cheering for the Jaguars against those Lambs, but no, you get to go see better football. Hopefully, that's great.
Well, let's tap the brakes on that. We've got Minnesota, Cleveland, and the Jets, and I don't even remember, the Jets and Broncos. So
Okay.
it's not the cream of the NFL crop, but it's always fun to go, and it's so great to get together with the flockers and give them a chance to go see a game.
Well, say hello to Cora, say hello to Daniel, and remind people again where to go to watch Starstruck by London.
You just go to @Starstruck by London on YouTube, and I also have on TikTok and Instagram. Starstruck by London will show you. I have announcements when the videos are coming out and what the videos are.
Very nice. Yeah, Dave, you do an awesome job with it.
Thank you.
So, Brandon, for the folks that are sticking around here, how could they be, Dave was so kind to say, hey, you got to support. Watch the flockers out there, the soon to be flockers. Where should they go? And what kind of perks can they get to join and raise the hawker together?
Well, you can go to getintheflock.com, help support our show through Patreon. You can even subscribe there as a free member. We are trying to get to 500 before the season starts. So yeah, even just joining as a free member at getintheflock.com, you get notifications of when the episodes are coming out. We're going to have tickets available for upcoming games. And I got to say, I was looking at the ticket prices for the Niners game, which we got group tickets for. And I think the cheapest you can find 49ers opening day tickets in Seattle is like $330, $340.
Ooh,
you got to pay for Purdy somehow.
We're going to be significantly lower than those prices. So if you're thinking about going to that Niners game, getintheflock.com, those folks, they're going to have the first shot at those. And you'll essentially, even at the highest tier, you'll probably, well, not the highest tier, but even if you support us at like $5 a month, you're going to save all of that just based on a 1-game ticket. So getintheflock.com, you'll get in our Discord. Shoot, you'll get to know Hawk Van Dyke out there on Discord, and then he might even let you stay at his house.
I will. I'm happy to put up people in London.
And Brandon, I think with that,
There's only one thing left to say.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hawks.